like the intro and stuff beforehand, just to talk all about like your projects and everything you got going on. I like to make sure that when people are on the show, like we shine a light on the stuff that they're doing, because it's a cool opportunity to get exposure to people that are doing cool shit. But yeah, man, just be yourself. Yeah, for real, just be yourself. Great. Well, Osai, we're recording, brother. Thank you so much for joining me on my show.
Hey, man, appreciate it, Tim. I'm super excited to be on the show and excited to have the conversation, see where it goes.
Me too. All right. I always like to start my episodes by just getting to know the person I'm interviewing, by getting to know my guest. I know that obviously you live in Philly, because that's where you and I have been introduced through mutual acquaintance through my sister. However, I don't know much about how you got into fitness before that. So where are you born? What was your upbringing in surrounded with fitness? Just tell me a little bit about your story.
Cool. So my background's, I like to think it's kind of unique. I like to call it the quote unquote American dream, if you want to call it that. But first generation immigrant from Nigeria. Was born in Nigeria as a child, and my family, my father and my mom and my brothers and everything, they moved here to the United States for my dad was a professor when he was alive, for teaching opportunity at universities, a couple different universities here in the United States. So he was an educator, and so was my mom at one point. But we settled down in Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania. I'm not sure if you know anything about Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania, but it's the only town in Pennsylvania, technically speaking, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And grew up there, really small town, like 12,000 people, one of the only Black families in all of the entire town. But, sports became something that was kind of like critical to my family. So let me kind of back up a little bit. I got three brothers, all older. I'm the youngest out of four. And it's actually great. We actually had we had some tough times when my dad died, but with having three older brothers, four of us total. I had just great role models to really kind of light the path and light the trail in terms of the steps to follow. So I didn't make the mistakes that they may have made. And luckily, we had a surrounding support system to kind of get us through the ups and downs of being, the only Black family, and then a single parent family when my mother died. But sports was something that was really kind of a cornerstone to my family. Grew up playing all sports, from when I was a kid to soccer to baseball, basketball, football, track. Swimming was not my thing. So I did not do swimming. But when I got to high school, I really started to find my niche with football and track and field. And I was fortunate enough to get a scholarship to Villanova University with football. But I was actually, believe it or not, I was actually better at track and field, like way better. Quick little side story, then we'll dive down to like how fitness became my thing. But I was way, way better at track and field. All through high school career, I was, one of the top javelin throwers in the entire nation. Cool. And my senior year, I won everything. I was All-American, first selection AP All-American, Nike All-American, USA Today All-American, won states, won nationals, and I was junior nationals throwing level. I was throwing like 220 in practice, but then I set a record at 210.3 for javelin. And Olympics throw, and I was 16 years old, and Olympians throw like 240 to like 270. So I was doing some things that really wasn't seen before for a 16-year-old out of Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania. But anyway, decided to go to school for football. Played 5 years there. We won a national championship at Villanova. Shout out to the Wildcats. And then
you were on that team?
Yeah, I was the captain. Yep.
Whoa, dude, that's sick.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
I fucking bet.
We had a lot of fun. My teammates were dope. We just had an amazing team, and this is you probably start to hear a lot of the trends and themes of my life. It's always been team, 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 team,
Mm.
and trying to progress towards, the ultimate outcome, whether if it's a win or some sort of successful outcome. But anyway, 5 years there, got my grad, played, I was a linebacker, and played a little bit of DM my first 2 years there, but had my opportunity with the NFL, landed in Green Bay, didn't last, got cut. But I'm fortunate enough to even be able to have that opportunity. It was an amazing experience of my life. After that didn't work out, I was selected for Team USA for American football. Played in a world championship over in Austria, and I was the captain of that team. We won that, and that was awesome. That was top 5 moments of my life.
Wow.
So anyway, all that said and done, football was done. We hung up the cleats, and I was living here in Philadelphia. Luckily, I graduated from Villanova with my master's in human resources. So I had a good education underneath me as well. So I followed my education, but fitness was something that was kind of like so consistent from basically from like the time I was like 8 years old. Sports and fitness and running around acting like a maniac and kicking it with your boys and kicking it with other teammates was something that was always consistent. So I gravitated towards just working out all the time, just staying fit, staying in shape. And my brother owned a supplement manufacturing company at the time called Muscle Gauge. Now it's a different company called U.S. Foods Manufacturing. But we were in the bodybuilding and sports fitness supplements world, right? So I worked there, helped him kind of set that up as well, and really kind of got into like a little bit of like competing, like a little bit of NPC and like just like doing those kind of things. At the same time, I was starting my modeling career as well. So like now I had a reason to be in shape, right?
Mm.
So like testing out this NPC thing. I was modeling for one of the top agencies in New York for men's fitness and athletes, Silver Models, which is now BMG Models. And I had a reason. So like people started seeing me like in the gym, like doing these crazy things, and like I was cut up, and like people were getting results. They started asking me. Now we're getting to the fitness part, right?
Mhm.
They started asking me, "Hey man, can I work out with you? Like, how do you get strong? How do you get cut up? How do you do this, that, and the third?" And started training people kind of like off the cuff. And then they started getting like crazy results, like 30 pounds lost, 40 pounds lost,
Wow.
increase in strength, like 70 pounds in bench, 100 pounds in squat, like crazy things. And then people started asking me for programs. And at this point, I was working full time in Independence Blue Cross. And I was like, you know what? Like, if I'm going to do this, I better like look at the actual business part of it,
Mhm.
understand it, and maybe potentially like make it into a reality and something where I can do what I love, which is health and wellness and impacting people and really making a lasting change for individuals and get paid for it. Because in the end, if you're not getting paid for it, trust me, it's not worth it. It's a lot
Yeah,
of
then
work.
it's just a hobby.
It's a hobby. Guess what? You got a time sucking hobby.
Mhm.
So I did a lot of research and I decided to get my certification. Worked at a big box gym, PSC here in Philadelphia. It was cool. All of a sudden, I had like I think I worked there for like 6 months, and I was working full time while modeling and working at the gym. I didn't sleep. Um, but it was cool because it was a lot of fun. It was new, it was exciting. I was around a lot of people. People, were getting great results. So I was doing well at work. Um, I was doing well in the gyms, and I was getting modeling contracts. So like life was good. I didn't have a life, but life was good.
Mhm.
uh, so that's kind of how it all started. I had a bunch of clients over at PSC real quick, and I was like, okay, I can't really get much more because I don't have time for myself. So at the time, the winter came, and um, I was like, okay, cool. I have a really a good understanding now of like what fitness is, big box wise. I did other research, followed a couple people, did a ton of studying on my own time of just like different methodologies into the business structures of what fitness businesses should look like, and started to build out my own individual business plan. And no one ever taught me how to build a business plan. I just looked up a couple of things online and created the models off of it, and then built out a financial plan, and really just kind of like created the business step by step. Um, and it just kind of happened. And then we also started off. It started getting warm in Philly because Philly winters kind of suck, right? They
Mhm.
fucking cold. Um, So the winter came through, and then the spring came through. So all my clients that were coming into personal training and group training at PSC, I was like, hey, you know what? Look, I love the art music steps. Is where I work out. Come rock with me at the steps. Let's get after it, right? Well, that turned out to be a really good thing to do. And then Fit Academy was basically born, and that's kind of where we're at today.
Amazing. Thank you so much for going into detail with it. A lot of times when people tell their story, I just notice that it's like the first question they get asked and they feel like they're talking too long. But I'm like, no, 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 keep going. Like, I want to learn more. So I appreciate you going in depth about it. There were two things that you said that I found really interesting. One is the idea about teams. And for me, that coincides with sports a lot because I had a lot of the same experience. And I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole, but one of the things with kids not being in school right now because of COVID that I worry a lot about is they don't get to play sports. And like, I'm telling you, I had a ton of energy when I was a kid. I could not stop getting in trouble when I was a kid. Like, and it was bad enough as it was, but I played sports year round, like every single season, including the summer. And I don't know what I would have been at. Like, I have no idea what would have happened to me if I didn't have soccer, if I didn't have wrestling, if I didn't have lacrosse, and then if I didn't have like summer basketball and all the other shit and skateboarding that I did in the summer. So, like, this isn't a question as much as it's like an invitation to kind of talk a little bit more around what you think. But if it weren't for the team building sports, like, I wouldn't have had any friends and I wouldn't have had anything to do with all that energy inside of me. And then you talk about teams. I know that you're getting a little bit more involved with like corporate work and corporate teams and how that blends into fitness. So, like I said, it's not necessarily a question, but just talk to me a little bit about how that teamwork and sports and your understanding on how that
It's impacted right now with COVID.
exactly, and just how it impacts people in life in general.
Yeah, we are in a clusterfuck of a situation. I tell
Crazy.
you what, and exactly what you said. Sports growing up as a kid is something. If you're in it, is really kind of vital to individual growth.
Yeah.
And I remember when like the COVID started hitting, and my brother, my second oldest brother, he's a principal for Hartford school system. So we're always really tied into what's going on with athletics and sports and kids and development. And when I felt so bad when the school year had to end in March for all these graduating seniors in high school, right? And all these also graduating seniors in college, right? Because you can't get that back.
Hmm.
You just can't, because those experiences don't come back, those opportunities don't come back, those stats, if you're an athlete, don't ever come back because you can't build upon it because they shut it off. So now that we're 5 months into COVID and school systems are trying to figure out what the hell to do between opening up, not opening up, most schools have already shut down all sports. Almost all schools have shut down all sports across the United States and probably even honestly across the world. So we are definitely in a time right now that is completely unprecedented in history, and there's going to be a significant impact across this potential generation in how people are developing, right? But at the same time, when change happens. Period, right? So we have to change to it. But yeah, sports is critical. Like all those kids in all ages who do go to summer camps, they don't have those days and those times and those experiences to interact with those other kids, right? To develop those social skills that they may not have. Now we're forced to do it through a new medium, which is these types of right here, Zoom, GoToMeeting, whatever type of video conferencing softwares or outdoor potential events, which are still limited. But it's a real issue, and honestly, I don't know if we'll have the answer. I don't think teachers have the answers. I don't think doctors have the answers. It's one of those things that we're going to need to really be creative in how we can, number one, keep kids out of trouble, right? Imagine this, right? Like we were one of the only black kids. If we didn't have any sports, if my family never gravitated towards sports, being the only black kids in Bloomsburg, if we weren't excelling at sports, what we've been doing?
Getting in trouble.
causing trouble, getting
Yeah.
arrested all the time. Why? Because we're kids and we need to get this shit out of our system, right? We would probably been freaking selling drugs, and we know none of us do drugs. Like, who knows what it would have been if we didn't have the direction and structure in the community of sports, right? To teach us life principles, to give us integrity, reliability, all the things that you get from sports and teamwork that we have now today. Like, these kids are going to be missing that. So, like, yeah, this is going to impact a lot of people. Hopefully, it's short term. We can get kids back into some sort of curriculum, but I don't know, man. This is a really fucked up situation. Like,
Yeah. I think about it a lot. I think it's one of the things that is just kind of going under the radar because there's so many issues with it. And this isn't by any means like a society podcast. I want to talk more about your business because I'm fascinated with the fitness business. But um, hearing the impact that sports had on you as a youth and knowing that, like, if I didn't have, it's just taught me so much. Like, it taught me about failure. Like, till this day, I got this picture hanging up behind me, which was a picture that somebody took after um, a championship lacrosse game that we lost in overtime. And till this day, man, I was 17, I think, and it was one of the most heartbreaking moments of my entire life. And like, when things don't go wrong in my life, there's still times where I look back at that and be like, it's okay. It doesn't hurt as bad as that lacrosse game. And so there's just such vital lessons that I feel like are important for people to hear because people need to play more sports when they're a kid. And two, just trying to figure out what's going to happen. So I appreciate that insight. All right. The business of fitness, man. Um, I've worked with personal trainers. Obviously, my sister is a personal trainer. You have been a really big influence on her. And before the podcast, we spoke a little bit about that. And I thank you for all that. But one of the things that I find to be most fascinating about the fitness business, and also one of the most complicated, is it's difficult to build like an employee employment corporate structure. A lot of the whole gamut kind of runs off of contractors. And I own an agency, and we always have a couple employees, but we always work with a couple contractors, and I have great relationships with the contractors. I'm not saying anything bad with it, but you always just kind of expect there to be a little bit more of like a different dynamic in that relationship. And so, like, I'm thinking something as personal as fitness, where you're working with people's emotions and you're working with people's bodies, and you're setting dreams and goals that, like, you have to figure out how to accomplish together. How were you able to build that structure, whereas you are working with contractors but still being able to point everybody in that same direction, where it's like, this is what we're trying to do here, and like, let's
bro,
do it
this is a
together.
big topic.
It's tough, man.
I feel strong about this topic. All right.
Good.
Oh man, where do I start? Fitness business. Okay, so when when I was doing the research to figure out the business structure of how I want to create things, and the services I wanted to have, the all that kind of stuff that comes into it. There was one thing that I knew from human resources was recruiting, retention, turnover, all those different things. And I knew that fitness had a significantly high turnover rate.
Yeah.
Right? Even back in 2014, 2013, when I kind of got things started, I knew it had the average turnover in the industry back then was about every 8 months you were turning over a new trainer. Now it's about 6 months. That's industry wide, which is a fuck of turnover.
Yeah.
Like, dude, it's one of the hardest things to business plan because with high turnover and a lack of longevity, it makes it significantly hard to create programs that are longevity based,
Yeah.
right? And those companies that do have, like, hey, someone's been there for X amount of years, X amount of time, they're able to find the right sauce and the right uh, uh, components to really kind of keep things together. But it's not easy, especially in an industry that's highly gig based. It's young, and young means transient because they're going through different life phases,
Mm.
right? Um, it's something that people like to do on the side of their desk, right? And the people who are in it, like career wise, like me, um, typically are the ones who are running the show, right? They go from being typically an excellent trainer, to being a potential owner, and it changes, right? Now, the challenge is too, especially from my experience too, is that a lot of trainers want to have their own, have ambitions to be their own brand, have ambitions to have their own style, have ambitions to want to do, be the influencer, to be this, be that, and that's good. And at the same time, it's inherently the nature of that vision and the career path is inherently tied to potential turnover because they want to go do their own thing, right? And like, there's nothing wrong with that in any way, shape, or form. It's just hard from a business standpoint. You know, I went from being a trainer to being a business owner to be able to create any kind of longevity. So it's a tough game to play. Those who do have consistent uh, uh, employees who aren't turning over have either probably made those individuals like either partial owners or
Hmm.
high management, but it takes time to get there because your business structure has to be at a point where it can actually afford the salaries or pay structures for those individuals. So now it's incentivized to keep the pay high, which means your revenue needs to be just as high. So if your revenue dips, you have to be flexible in terms of the pay. So in an industry that's highly cyclical and highly gig based, it makes it really challenging. That's actually been one of the most challenging things that I've noticed um, with my own personal business because it's just crazy turnover. You know, I've been fortunate to have a few people who've lasted a couple of years, but you know, two years, 3 years is like the max. There's a couple businesses here in Philly that I know that have some decent tenure of employees, but it's a significant challenge in this industry, especially if you hire these young kids, you know, out of college, they're still trying to figure out their lives.
So what is it about? Because Fit Academy's been around for a while. It's not to say that like as soon as you opened up, you were just this huge smashing success. And with every business, there's ups and downs, and I'm sure that you have your own. So what is it? What is the skill set that you think that you've brought, or the methodology that you've brought that has attributed to the fact that you guys have stuck around for so long?
Um, I think it's just like fitness, right? Just like, hey, how do you lose weight, right? It's
You just
consistently
show up
applying
every
the
day.
same, show up every fucking day.
Yeah.
Like, there's no, listen, there's no secret sauce to this, right? There's no secret sauce to staying in this game. It's a tough game. It's a brutal game. It's tough. It's long hours. As an entrepreneur, you're going to work 10 to 15 hours. It's 10 times harder than you think it's going to be. All right. You're going to have way more punches in the face than you'll have wins. But when you have that win, you got to celebrate it. It's really more about, I call it, you know, you got to have the steel for it. You got to have the steel, you know, you
Yeah.
got to have the reserve for it. And you got to be always creating and always consistent. But I think at the same time, you always got to be studying. Like one of the things that I've always done, I've always invested in myself to understand, hey, how can I do things better? How can we create structures better to make it more easier for our trainers to be able to make their money, have consistency, have stability, be able to pay their rent, you know, take care of their real needs while making the experience excellent for their clients, right? Because trainer stability means client stability. And there's no secret sauce. You put in the fucking work, bro. You wake up every morning, you follow the routine, you follow the process, and you take your punches when you got to take your punches. You eat the frog. Have you ever heard about eat the frog?
No.
Cool. Check it out. Look up Eat the Frog, right? Basically, the concept behind Eat the Frog is you do the hardest thing first and you don't complain about it. You get
Oh
it
yeah,
done,
yeah,
knock
yeah.
it
Like
out.
the wrestling and the football
Yeah,
montage. Yeah, for
yeah.
sure.
But you don't complain about it. You get it done, right? You do the damn thing, just like Nike says, do it, just do it. And you are, over time, you look back and you'll be able to build something that has sustainability. But it's not easy. Not everyone can do it. It's a complete mental game more than a physical game. I shouldn't say that. It's definitely physical as well. But there's a lot of challenges, and there's also a lot of distractions in this industry, which also makes it difficult, right? Especially now with social media. Everyone wants to be a TikTok, you know, hero. Everyone wants to be an Instagram influencer. Um, Everyone wants their own, you know, logo, if you want to call it that. But I think right now, I think the biggest thing that I've always wanted to do as a business is to have that championship business. Does that make sense? To have
Of
that
course.
championship team within a business who just goes out there and fucking crushes it. When my trainers are going out here and making like, you know, 70 to 80 grand, 100 grand a year. That's what I would love to have, because that gives you stability. It gives you, consistent best affiliate. It gives you consistent excellence across the board. And really kind of creating that standard of excellence is something that I've always wanted to strive for.
Yeah, and you noted it. I was going to put it in the show notes of the podcast. You've won that Best Affiliate Award multiple times. I'll make sure that people see that and they can read that content on it, because that's a great accomplishment. Philadelphia, even though it's has that what is it? Not a stereotype, but people laugh at it because it's like an overweight city. It's also a very fit city. So there's a lot of other trainers and fitness businesses that you compete against, and for you to like consistently show up on that top of best affiliate, I think that's a big accomplishment. You should be proud of it. Yeah. Okay. So there were two directions to go with what you said, which I'm also very fascinated about with the fitness industry. And we got some time, so I'm going to try to touch on both of them. One, it's hard enough running a business, and to do that on top of what, like, one of the unspoken requirements about being a successful trainer is to be in shape. And people don't talk about it a lot, but it's really one of the only businesses that comes with like this double whammy of it, because you could be like an oil exec and be super fat and unhealthy, or almost every other entrepreneur in the world. And yeah, people might look at you and maybe get turned off a little bit about your appearance, but when you're in the fitness industry, like, it's a prerequisite that you constantly take care of your body. And man, I've been into fitness my entire life. I'm basically always in shape, but it's not to say that sometimes I'll go on like 2 week, downs where it's like, man, like my body hurts and like I just feel like eating this Milky Way and like I'm not feeling that great right now. You know what I mean? And so like we can laugh about it, but I've worked with personal trainers a lot. My wife has been in the fitness industry. My sister, obviously, like I myself had struggled with just that constant up and down about my fitness and my appearance. So how do you manage both sides of that? Whereas you have to keep your brain in check, but like you also got to keep your body in check. And it's twice the work because it's not easy.
Great question, man. That's you. It is hard. And I think the thing that's really interesting is that outside looking in, let's say it's like someone who's not, non-fitness, they're coming to us for services. They think that we have the shit figured out.
Mm-hmm.
We do, in a sense. But when it comes to our own individual self, it's just as hard for us as it is for them, right? Like the same struggles that they're going through, we're also going through it. It just happens that we've been able to build our repertoire of fitness and our aesthetics, our physical aesthetics over time. Now, for us to, like, for example, like for me right now, right? Like I feel like I know I'm like 10 to 15 pounds overweight. Why? Because I'm stressed the fuck out, right? COVID hit, shit's crazy. And you're just trying to stay mentally in the game. So you're doing things that, like, eating unhealthy. I'm a tequila and Pop-Tarts guy, right? I'm gonna
I
have my
love
tequila and
Pop-Tarts,
Pop-Tarts,
bro. Oh.
right? But it doesn't mean that I'm happy with the way that I look, because I know where I've been in the past, right?
Yeah.
The same way there's another individual who's coming to me and says, man, I was, my ideal weight was 175. Right now I'm 220 and I just don't feel like I used to. Well, the struggle is still the same. The numbers don't fucking matter, right? The mental struggle is still exactly the same. Toss on top of that you have people coming to you saying, oh, well, you always look like this. Like, listen, my struggle is my journey, and my struggle is different than your journey and your struggle, but it's still struggle. You know what I mean? And a lot of people don't realize that there's a lot of depression and there's a lot of anxiety in this industry. We're in the profession of delivering and giving so much of our own energy to other people, and it's very, very rarely reciprocated, right? It's very rare that other people give us energy back as fitness professionals. So it's really one of those things that we do need to keep in check, right? One of the things that I, over the last year and a half, 2 years that I've been struggling with was this anxiety, right? Like shit, like this shit is crazy. And there's things that you need to do, just whether if it's fitness, if you're a fitness professional or not, or if you're an entrepreneur, or even just a regular, 9-to-5 office warrior, like you should always be doing things to keep your mind just as mentally fit and physically fit as your body, right? It's so critical. What the mind wills, the body does, right? So I've been hyper focusing a lot on taking care of myself before I take care of anyone else. Why? Because I can't take care of anyone else if I'm not fit, if I'm not healthy. Just can't. I can't take care of my business, can't take care of my clients, can't take care of my family, can't take care of anything, my finances. Um, so I focus the first few hours of my day, no matter what, ideally, only on me. And then I'll go to fucking 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock and pass out and do it all over again. You know what I mean? But you got to be able to create that balance in yourself. So really think about like creating those checkpoints in how you're feeling, not just mentally, but physically, because your body will break down too. And
Yeah.
it's a balancing act.
Yeah, I appreciate you being open about that, man. I really do. So, like, everybody struggles with it. And just because you're a trainer doesn't mean that you're impervious to those kind of thoughts. And like, this is really going into it, but I've spent a lot of time thinking about it. I wrote a really long blog post about it actually, which was very therapeutic to me, but I had back surgery like a year ago, and I can't run anymore. And although I was always into hit stuff, like I had a pretty good runner's body. And so I'm super shredded, you know, because I'm burning calories, but I can still do like 15 pull-ups and a ton of burpees. So I just had that like zombie apocalypse type body, you know? And then 5 months wasn't even allowed to bend over for a full month. And for the first time in my life, you know, I'd get out of the shower and I have like this little tiny beach ball, and I couldn't believe it. Like I would look at myself and just be like, who am I? And then you think that you're doing something wrong, but you're just healing, you know, like there's nothing I could do about it. My spine got cut open. And like, if I don't take the time to take care of myself now, I'm going to feel it for the rest of my life. And so what I'm getting at with that is fitness and health, it fluctuates depending on life, depending on how much time you have, depending on like the kind of exercises that you're doing. It's a very dynamic thing. And one of the maybe insidious is too strong a word, but one of the things that I think people in the fitness profession and even with their clients have to be mindful of is that there's always that idea where it's like, man, I just want to get back to when I was at that spot. You know what I mean? Like that was when it was the best.
Glory
But
days.
like, yeah, but even if you can get back there, your body's going to be a little bit different. You know, now I got my knee popping every time I try to do squats. So like, I can't really do that anymore. And so I think it's important that like we just try our best to appreciate the journey of it, which sounds so cliche, but man, for me, fitness is, it's like, it's like an experience with myself, you know, where like I learn about myself rather than it's this ideal metric that like I need to get to.
Love it. Fully agree with everything you're saying. You know, especially in today's day and age, this is all I hear from clients. Oh, I want to
Yeah.
get back to my old me. Your old me is 15 years ago, bro. Like, shit ain't happening anytime soon. You got to come back to your new you, your optimized you for who you are today. And a lot of people always want to like one of the things that I do. And listen, this is business. This is sales. I need to sell you your dream. In order for you to invest in yourself and invest and really believe that you can actually achieve it, I need to sell you your dream, right? But the important thing is understanding the mental progress and physical and emotional progress along the journey. It's about the process, right? Ask anyone who is incredibly successful. The win is fleeting. The process is rewarding, right? It's about what happens during that process. Like, for example, like I don't talk about the championships. Why? Because I talk about the locker room. I talk about the bullshit that happened, you know, off the field with my boys in the team, right? That's what we remember.
Yeah.
We always remember the championship, but guess what? That feeling is fleeting. But when you build those lifelong relationships with your teammates, your friends, you know, your partners, whatever it may be, that's a part of the journey. And when I talk to my when it comes from a leadership perspective for my business, I talk about my trainers. I'm like, guys, there's only so much you can do to get someone to do something. What you need to ask yourself is, have you been following the process, and has your effort been to the level of excellence throughout your process? Or has it been consistent throughout your process? Judge yourself not based off of always the end outcome. The end outcome is great, but half the time you can't control that shit, right?
Hmm.
You can't control COVID, but you can control hey, how long are you staying at home? How often, how frequently are you wearing a mask? You can control your level of excellency and consistency throughout. And that's what you should be judging yourself. Are you able to follow the process? How consistent are you? And how on point are you during that journey, right? Are you able to be flexible during that journey? Are you able to notice, points where you can maximize or pull back, right? And I think, now that I keep getting older and looking back at things, because you're never always going to get the right outcome. I have so many marketing campaigns that have elicited zero, none, negative revenue, right? But guess what? One out of every like 8 will blow up, and I'll fail 8 times, but my process will be exactly fucking the same, bro. It'll be exactly the same, and then it'll pop, right? So your mindset regarding success needs to change a little bit, especially when it comes to fitness, because it's the same exact thing when it comes to your own personal routine. How consistent you are will deliver your end result.
And I write about this idea so much, which is in entrepreneurship in general, which is something that I'm passionate about. Like I like I said, had a lot of struggles when I was a kid, and building companies really just gave me something to focus on. It gave me like a place to put all of that super hyper energy that I had. And between building websites and building brands and staying in shape, I had just a place to channel my energy. And so I think that entrepreneurship and fitness, I've like thought about the relationship between the two a lot, is what I'm getting at. And I think that entrepreneurship and fitness are so closely related because with the two, you learn that win lasts. It's like pulling a new car out the lot. Like you feel so good for that first block. And then what's the first thing you think of? Like, oh, okay, what am I going to get next? You know what I mean? And like, I bench pressed 255 last week or maybe 2 weeks ago. And I weigh, well, like almost 190 now. Lifting was never my thing. I was always a cardio guy. You know what I mean? And as soon as I put up 255, first thought was I probably could have done 5 more pounds. And so being able to recognize that uh, relationship with yourself in your mind is really true for entrepreneurship, because yeah, the rush of that new sale is great and I love it, but you can't get into it for that rush of the new sale. Like you can't get into it for that victory, even though the championship is awesome, even though like that personal record is awesome, because at the end of the day, you always got to go to bed at night and be cool with the fact that like you accomplished a new goal and you want to do better, but try not to focus on those things too much, which is such a crazy, twisted, weird dynamic to talk about. But I think people that understand entrepreneurship and people that understand fitness have, at least in my view, most of the time, a better conversation with themselves about that next level of success,
Yeah, here's what I'll tell you. And this maybe just be for me, right? There is a level of obsession that you need to have
Yeah.
in order to be a successful entrepreneur. Same thing with to have a consistent, healthy lifestyle. There needs to be a level of obsession where you're not. It's not always about. It's not. Yeah. It's never being satisfied. Call it what it is, right? Call it what it is. It's about not being satisfied with where you are. It's about continual progression, right? And continual progression also means not taking steps backwards,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, and in order to really, I think the cool thing is what you talk about is kind of having that mental check. Entrepreneurs are always trying to, well, entrepreneurs and fitness people are always trying to push themselves physically, whether if you're working more hours, doing more sales, or working out more times per week, more miles, more whatever it may be, eating healthier consistently, et cetera, et cetera. You're always trying to push yourself, but mentally too, you're always trying to push yourself too, right? Think about the mental game of fitness and sports. Geez, that's the game happens here before it ever happens out here. You know what I mean? And some of the best athletes will tell you that too. Same thing with business. The game happens up here before it ever happens out here. So you're always having those mental checks, right, as well as the physical obsessions. But yeah, this game of health and wellness and entrepreneurship, it's a mind fuck, bro. You gotta be ready for it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I just, man, I'm very grateful that you were able to, or that you were willing to open up a lot about that. I guess ending off with this, I find sometimes that when people come on the show, it's all like you want to shine people in the best light, and that's why I like having these conversations, because like you're doing great work and you're helping a ton of people, and your brand is really growing, and you should be proud of that. But I think it's important for people to hear that in the same way with taking care of your health, like sometimes I would go for runs and I'd be a mile and a half in and I just did not want to do it and my body just sucked. Whereas 3 days ago, I was cruising. And like I have no idea why that happens. Right? Like I have no idea why that happens. And the same thing happens with business and in life. So what I'm saying is I appreciate you coming here and just talking about the journey and how important cliche topic of cliche topic is of like waking up, doing the next thing that's in front of you. And when you do that over and over and over and over again, 10 years later, you wake up in a position where it's like, wow, like I really, really got somewhere. So like, thank you so much for that message. I appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate that too. I mean, it's crazy because like now I'm like trying to like balance Fit Academy and this other business. So now it's like I gotta like split my brain up into two
Yeah.
different hemispheres and like switch the gear to like more like corporate side and like more physical side. So it's a balance the entire way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I apologize that we didn't have enough time to talk about that, because I really wanted to talk about the new business that you're opening. But if anybody listens to the podcast, you can see all the show notes on timstods.com. Click on the podcast link. Yours is going to be the first one. I'll link to Fit Academy. I'll link to your Instagram. I'll link to I forget what it's called. The corporate one
Wing.
is Wing. Yes, Wing. I'll link to Wing, and you can check all of your workout, man. It's great. I'm a huge fan of what you're doing, and I really appreciate your time.
Cool, man. Hey, man. If you have any questions, let me know.
Yeah, I will. All right, brother. We'll check in again. We'll do this again in like a year or so. I appreciate it.
All right, man. Thanks for your time.
Yeah.